Alright, for this week, I've set up my okay. So this week, uh, I set up my server as usual, and actually for this week, I created a new project entirely, and in the project, the rental project, which needs a landlord, a property, and users. So I added the endpoints at routes, index, landlords, properties, and users. So the controller for the users. Also, I also added a validation and error handling in my code. So if you look at the users very well, in the previous project, I for any user to be created, uh, the datas are not consistent. So for this one, I made sure that the datas are consistent. I made use of Joey. It's a data validation package. So if you look at the line 9 to 13, every user should be able to have a name, phone number, email, or address. So without that, if you want to create a user without adding a name or phone number or email or address, it's not going to work. Same also with the properties. I created a schema for the properties and also with the landlord. So if you look at another one again, I also created a function that takes a schema and a body, and the schema will be validated against the body with the body, and the function returns two value, which is either true, which is either error or the value if the validation is true. So if we go to users once again, let's go to creating a user. To create a user, so in the line 56, I called the function, I added the user schema from the beginning, then I added the request or the body. So I'm trying to validate the request body with the user schema. So if the body does not match the user schema, it's going to throw an error. If it matches, it will return the value. So if it's an error, a response will be sent to the client that they to give him to that details the error, and if the validation pass through, then the value will be passed into the line 65 or insert one of the database, and that is it. Also, I also checked for updating to update the when updating. I also validate what is going to be updated with the user schema. And also in updating and getting single or deleting users, sometimes there might be a parameter, which is the object ID, is actually received. So in line 103, I had to check if that object ID is a valid object ID. If it's not valid ID, then a bad object ID message is sent to the client. And if it's true, then we can continue with our logic. So to test the functionality, I already have my database running. Database is listening at node running on port 4000. So I will use my Thunder client to check the functionality. So let's say I want to get all the users. So I get all the users. So these are all the users in the table. So let's assume I want to get the first user or a single user. All I need to do is to add the parameter or the object ID of that user. I send that ID is that object is returned. But if I decide to remove some, make the object ID invalid, and I send it, a 400 a bad request response is sent and a bad object ID is sent. So this functionality cross along as all the endpoints, including the landlord to get all the landlord. So there's only one landlord. So if I copy that landlord and send back, so if I decide to make it invalid, an object ID invalid will be returned. Let's create a user. Let's create a user. So if I try to create a user with an empty body, so if I'm creating a user, I'm supposed to have a name, phone number, email, and address, and they are all required. So if I come here and post an empty listen, it gives me an error, cannot post user. Okay, it's not okay, it's users, not user. So it gives me a response for bad records, and the detail of it is message name is required and phone is required, and the rest they are all required. So I can just create this and say name equals to happy, and then what else? Okay, name, phone, email, and address. Name, phone, um, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I can put any numbers. Then the other validation that I can actually do for that email, I put EZEKIELJEREMIA at gmail.com. Then it should have an address. Address will be by Elsa states. Okay, if I send it, hopefully this should. Oh, okay, syntax error. I think so if I send 204, it means okay. 204, no content, means it has been successfully added. Let's assume I did not make this an email. Let's see what happens. It tells you that email must be a valid email. That means this email is not valid and it did not work. So that's all. If you have any question, you can ask in the comment section, and do well to like and share the video to for encouragement. Thank you.